player to it. You've talked about Yasmani Grandal and the effect he'll have on that staff. I'm going to add another one to that. Not only will Grandal help when they're pitching, but how does a player like Dallas Keuchel, now on that staff, help those young pitchers? He's been there, he's done that, and he knows how to do it. And I think he may not put up the great gaudy strikeout numbers, but Dallas Keuchel is going to have a great impact on the Dylan Ceases of the world. And I just think the White Sox are for real, and they're in the playoffs in 2020.
Yeah, I agree. The thing about Keuchel, like you say, he knows how to win, and he's gonna teach the young pitchers how to act between starts, what it means to properly prepare yourselves for each and every time out. And I think that's big when you're talking about Lopez, Rodon, and Cease. You're talking about three kids who need that.
And Rodon
figured it out on his own.
Yeah, Rodon's going to be in the rotation. Lopez is going to be in the rotation. Cease is going to be in the rotation. We know what Giolito did last year, and now we're adding a veteran. I mean, I think for what you see numbers-wise from – and that's the problem with some fantasy wannabes. It's not what you did last year. It's what you're going to do this year in this year's environment. And so, we're together. So while we're there, though, I really like the Tribe. I love their pitching. They named Plesac their fifth starter tonight. I don't know if you got that before your show, but Plesac is number 5, and what a rotation.
I watched him the other night pitch, and he looked good. He was pitching against Musgrove. Musgrove looked really good.
Filthy.
Really good. But I'll tell you, Plesac matched him. He struck out. I think he struck out Brian Reynolds. It was the full Pirates lineup. Josh Bell was in there. Newman wasn't in there. But I'll tell you, Plesac he looks like a seasoned vet,
and not a bad fifth starter. We'd agree.
Right.
And so, Chappie, your philosophy, 60 game, it's not the same philosophy we would have in 162.
Exactly.
Okay. You can pick up a pitcher, you can drop a... Look, they're going to get, 10, 12 starts? Each start is huge. I'm a firm believer that this year, look at the schedule, look at the teams you're playing, and I think for a regular season fantasy drive, Cleveland Indian pitchers make a lot of sense in fantasy.
Well, I mean, especially, one of the best 1-2s in the game in Bieber and Clevenger, right? But again, I feel like we say this a lot. This all comes down to the Trevor Bauer school of thought. These guys have bought into this. All of them. Plesac, Savali, all the way down the line. They've all learned from Trevor Bauer, and now they're emulating into their own. I'll tell you, the thing on the Al Leiter thing the other night with Robbie Ray was interesting. He was talking about Bauer, and he was talking about Bieber and how Bieber was coming up, and then he changed his. He shortened up on the back end on his follow through, and what that does is it adds velocity and it adds command. And I think all of these young pitchers have done that. They've emulated that. Pitching's very much a mocking industry, right? If someone finds something that works, people are going to try and emulate it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what these pitchers have done well, mind you.
No doubt. Great point. And I just think that Central Division. Look, I think Kansas City's going to be competitive.
Right.
And you talked about, we'll talk about Matt Manning and Detroit. And, my favorite pitcher, Jordan Zimmerman, going down with an injury opens up an opportunity for some kid. And this year, we don't have to wait 25 games.
Right.
Seven. That's it. 7. And so they're going to be young kids coming up and playing. Will Mize and Manning both be up early? If they are, Detroit's got some decent offensive pieces this year. If those guys can come up and pitch, more competition. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think the shortened season adds some spice to these teams who had no chance. In fact, I think there are only 2 teams, maybe 3, but I think there are only 2 teams in the major leagues this year that don't have a chance. 2. That's it. I think everybody else has a chance. And the 2 teams I think that don't have a chance are both in the American League. So that means your Pirates, in my mind, have a chance. It may be that much, but they have a chance.
It's not much. It's not much, and that's okay. But to your point with the Tigers, I'll tell you right now, they're doing some good things. This Scooble kid, what's the right fielder's name? Riley Green?
Riley Green. He is a gazelle.
Tough.
He is a gazelle.
I'll tell you that they are. They're 2 years away from being really damn good, and it's going to be led by Mize and Manning. I mean, that is a potentially generational 1-2 combo, and I don't say that lightly.
Well, and I think if they come up after games, pitching's different than position players. We know that. Teams don't mind calling up a pitcher after the 7 games. I think they both come up. I think they both pitch. I think they both pitch well. And Jimenez at the back end of that bullpen, look, I think he's probably the most, he and the guy in Texas, Leclerc, may be the most 2 underrated closers in the major leagues. I'm not a closer drafter. I am a closer watcher at the end. And so many leagues, Jimenez and Leclerc were still sitting there. Remember last year how the Detroit closer who got traded to Atlanta had like 30 saves after 70 games? I mean, remember that? That's Jimenez this year. They're going to win some games, and he's going to get every save. And when you get Manning and you get Mize up there, he's going to get every save for those guys. That kid can throw. I really I'm not a Tiger fan, but I sound like it. I just think they're going to be a lot better than a lot of people think. And I think for fantasy, they got some pieces.
Yeah, and it's cool that they went out and they made a couple signs in the offseason. They went out and they got Crone. They went out and they got Scope. Miggy's still there. They've got, they'll compete. They'll compete. And when you're throwing in pitchers of that caliber, you got a chance.
So let me ask you this. I got to do this to you. I've already talked about my day of mourning. I don't like the fact that Jordan Montgomery's down, but at least he's not hurt.
Right.
Your guy out in Oakland. I read the news today with a frown on my face. Yeah, my head was bowed low. And I thought about my great friend Phil Chaplin when he heard the news about a pitcher by the name of A.J. Puck. So what does that do to Oakland and their chances of dethroning the Astros?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had a piece on Puck tonight that I had to scratch. I like Puck maybe more than Luzardo. I know that's bold because I just think the Puck has a bigger upside. I don't think Chris Batts is a good pitcher, and that's who's going to slot in there, right? And that's a hell of an offense, Artie. I don't think they miss a beat. Sure, they missed the great potential of a developing young star. Who wouldn't? But I think Luzardo is going to be there, and I think Luzardo will serve that purpose as well. And people forget how good Frankie Montas is.
Montas is a stud, and now the thing I think that Oakland does now is it kind of forces their hand, if you will. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to press Luzardo into 9 innings the first week. In fact, they've already said he's a starting bullpen. But Dave Megden, I mean, come on. I mean, that's kind of like Tommy Malone, right? Yeah. So I think Megden gets one start.
That's a bullpen game.
No doubt. One start, and then he's out, and they're going to bring Luzardo. And I tell you what else. Luzardo, I don't know how much time he got last year, and it counted towards service time. Right. But if they can manipulate that any at all this year, Megden will get one start. Luzardo will be up in the rotation week 2, and that's where he will stay. And I don't think they do miss out. Bassett, I like Bassett. I like what he brings. But I tell you who I really like on that team. We're talking about players later in drafts that really can stick it. How about Mark Canha? Don't you love what Mark Canha brings to Oakland along with the whole outfield, actually, I think is a very underrated group. I don't know if it's because they're West Coasters and we go to bed here before 11, but you've got some good Laureano and Cana in that outfield. I think they rank pretty high against anybody.
Yeah, I agree. The thing, so I'll bite this off bit by bit. Kana, he had a hell of a year last year. I don't have his stats in front of me, but when I looked at him for last week, I was really surprised. He had, 20-something homers? He really had a good year. And like you said, because he's out on the West Coast, he doesn't really get noticed. But he's certainly become a centerpiece of that offense, and I don't see why he wouldn't continue to be a big part of it. Well, Laureano is the guy that he is out with a sore calf.
I got a report today. Okay, let's pull it up. I get these day-to-day notices. I guess everybody gets what they get, right? But I got today that he is no longer day-to-day, which tells me he must be over whatever injury he had. I don't know if they're playing a scrimmage tonight. Let me read this. He's starting in center field and batting second tonight in their exhibition game against the Giants. And they absolutely mauled the Giants last night. I may turn it over when we finish and watch some of that. But if he's batting second and playing tonight, that tells me all must be well in paradise.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I don't know who this Kevin Jones guy is, but he makes a good point. Chris Davis, bounce back year. I totally agree with that, Kevin. I have Chris Davis in quite a few of my leagues, and I think last year was an anomaly, and he returns to your 40 homer type, 250 middle of the lineup player.
I know Kevin Jones really well. I know him really well. Yeah, he's probably one of the smartest three guys about baseball anywhere, including present company. And everything he's putting up tonight is about his fantasy players. So,
of course it is.
Yeah. So I see Cana. I brought him up for that reason. I see Cana and Chris Davis and Simeon. He's loaded with Oakland A's. But here's a player this is not so much an obscure one because I know we've talked about him. But to me, fantasy-wise, he's been a disappointment up until this year. And that's your boy at third base, Chaplin. Fantasy-wise, he has not been the dreamboat that he is in reality because we don't get any defense, right? We get no defense. But is this the year that he gets the BA up a little bit? Is this the year he hits a few more home runs? Is this the year he drives in a few more? Is this the year that he is your, Phil Chaplin, most valuable player?
I'll tell you, I love Matty Chap. I don't know. This year's going to be weird. It could very well be him, but I think so for us fantasy nerds, I think next year's the year you see Matt Chapman take over, get into that. Chapman and Olsen are as good a 1-2 as there is. Those two guys at the corners, Olsen's 50 homer a year and Chapman's 40 homer a year. Those two guys together, boy, what a core. And, you're right. Defense isn't a statistic in fantasy sports, but I really do believe this is a year he does start to raise his average. He does start to become a little bit more consistently disciplined at the plate. He gets up around 270, 280. A 60-game season, I could see him hitting 15 homers.
That would be an incredible number in a 60-game season.
That would be a really good year. But the more important thing is he's going to be most effective if he's driving in and he's scoring runs. Because that means the people around him are following suit. That's what the A's need if they want to take that next step.
So what's Oakland going to do at second base this year, Chappie? I know you've been following it. I've been following it. Beretta has come out. House of Fire here in July. Are they going to give, finally, Franklin Beretta that chance? I don't know. I mean, that to me has always been sort of the black hole of players. I mean, that you put somebody there we never hear from them again kind of thing. Jerks and Profar certainly not the answer.